How you doing, brother?
Good, how are you?
Well, I'm good. I'm good. I'm sorry I didn't. I have a zinc lozenge in my mouth, by the way. Sorry about that. But you know what the zinc lozenge is?
Okay, I guess not. No.
A lozenge is like instead of a supplement that you swallow, you put it in your mouth and you slowly let it melt. And it's useful sometimes because a virus can be located around your throat or something. So if the zinc is against it, you keep the lozenges a little bit better. But I had it left over from the COVID time. Anyway, brother, sorry I entered a little bit late into the convo. Guess what? My wife is having contractions and we're timing them. So it seems like it's starting now. Yeah, so that's why I was a little bit busy this morning and stuff. Yeah.
You're a crazy bastard. I will not be doing any type of podcast.
Well, yeah, I wanted to get a couple of done in case, I get too busy when she's born and stuff. But anyway, brother, tell me. So tell our audience, for the audience to know, Artem and me, we're good. Artem and I, actually, not Artem and me. Artem and I are great friends. We talk often off screen. We thought it would be cool if we have a regular series. I have a series called Biohacking Arm Wrestling. I want to do a regular series with Artem in which we can talk about not just current events, but more interestingly, each episode will try to give some learning lessons that we both have. Him from his arm wrestling experience, training, and his extensive experience in arm wrestling, and me from maybe the nutrition, medication side. So this is our second time doing this. We wanted to catch up. The thing I wanted to ask Artem is, you have a match coming up, don't you? Who's the match against? Tell our audience.
Oh yeah, so I have a super match with Jamie Sheldon in exact little bit less than 2 weeks. We're 13 days away. So August 7th, me and Jamie have a super match. I had my last practice this Monday, but a couple hours ago, my friend Dylan came through asked if I want to pull, so I arm wrestled him again. And I'm in much better shape. Day by day. So
your arm is looking thick, actually, to be honest. The right arm. I saw that forearm there. Yeah,
I just practiced, so I'm a little inflamed and shit. So, for some reason, Jamie wanted to tell me that I have 3 weeks and I cannot get any stronger or faster. And I've got stronger and faster, Jamie, so you're in much more trouble.
For the audience that doesn't know,
I'm struggling. But my weight is struggling, but I'm there.
Your weight's struggling how?
I just can't gain weight. Like I know why. That's where I'm at. I have my problems.
but just for the audience that doesn't know, Jamie Sheldon is one of the most talented arm wrestlers, very well-known guy. He's from California, right? And somewhere, not in LA though, right? Northern California or something like that?
Riverside?
Oh, Riverside. Okay, yeah. So I've seen Jamie at the LA Expo, the arm wrestling match there before. He's a very powerful and fast guy. I'm very impressed that Artem is facing him. And of course, we're on your team, Artem. We hope you win.
All right.
Aside from that, Artem, before we get into other stuff, what else is going on in terms of the next matches, like in this month and next month for the PAL top 8? Is there Dave Chaffee facing someone?
No, I think they moved Dave and Levan somewhere they moved it. It's supposed to happen, but they just keep moving it, right? I think as far as the cool stuff going on. And you know what? Before we continue, I've been doing a lot of marketing, learning stuff. And then I realized why PL stuff never been really super popping. And I'll talk about it in my videos, but I just want to let everybody know I figured out why matches are not that exciting.
Well,
in PL particular. But anyway.
Wait, bro. There's one thing. Yesterday, I was trying to show my wife a PL match. I was trying to show my wife Genadi Kvikvinia versus someone at PL, and just my wife is not that into arm. She watched me arm wrestle before, but she doesn't understand that much. So the amount of starts, how long it takes to start, it's almost impossible to pay attention. It's unless you cut it in the video, there's 5 minutes of people not whereas in the American one you immediately start, so it's easier to understand, right? Don't you think?
Yeah, well, that's why I don't really think people understand how they should show actual footage, right? There's a room to show almost raw footage, right? Like WL live stream kind of do that. But I think they have to provide a really nice highlight video almost every time, right? Because nobody, if you're watching it in recording, there's some people that want like to see the whole thing, see some details, maybe some cheaters, a bunch of little details. For the average person, we need that highlight. Slips, straps, ready to go, fall, quick, right? So there's a market for every little thing, right? And I think, you can't show a random person a 40 minute match. No, it's best out of 5. It takes 2 seconds.
And Artem, they should release the highlight the same day as they release the full footage, or as quickly as possible, because they release often the highlight like a week later, and most people, they can't watch through that. They're not like us. They're not gonna spend an hour watching on small things.
There's a big market. Cut it to 1 minute for the Instagram. Cut it for 15 seconds for this layer. Yeah, there's a lot of way to create some following for that. Yeah, so that's one of the problems. But
by the way, you know what's funny, Artem? Sorry to interrupt you. Yesterday, I was looking at the Olympics. I was looking at the Olympics, and I noticed there's a lot of like Georgians in any kind of combat or strength sport. So then I was randomly watching TV, and I started watching sumo wrestling. I don't know why. And while I was watching sumo wrestling, I noticed, holy crap, there's a white guy sumo wrestling. So I was like, where is this guy from? I researched Georgia. So the Georgians are even in sumo wrestling. They're so combative. They go into any sport. It's crazy, man. But anyway, so which matches are coming though?
Okay, so we come back to that. So I guess the biggest thing is coming. It's next Saturday. We have John Brzenk and Chen Shaw, right? Mm-hmm. It's actually super big. It's like the first match I decided to just go with my own money. Like, you know what? I want to see it in person. That's like the first time I had an opportunity. You know what? I'm gonna go. Like, I would like to see this shit go down if it does go down. So far, everything very assuring, right? I'm excited. I have nowhere to stay. I have no idea how to get there. I had a ticket, so I'm ready to watch it whenever it comes down. So that's a good match. That's next weekend.
What about from the east side? Is there anything from PL or Dubai?
But the next weekend, it is like the next weekend, but I think that's like the biggest match, right? We also have the next weekend Krasimir Kostadinov versus Vitaly Laletin, right?
Okay, that's good.
In Bulgaria, Tutrakan. But like, I don't know, I think our side of the world is so excited about Chance and John. Not many people really talk about. I mean, I barely heard anything on American side talking about Krasimir and Vitaly, right? But it's a good match too.
Is there any chance of Krasimir winning? I know he's won Zloty last year and he's a top performer and all that, but this is Laletin. It's like
So I think I've made the video on it because I did a little research. My question on it was how often Krasimir loses his hand, because that's what kind of, I don't think he can arm wrestle like this. So I really wonder, and like, Krasimir might have a chance if his power is somewhere there, right? But I don't really think, like, if Vitaly takes his hand, I think it's over, right? But at the same time, like, I think one of the biggest Krasimir's accomplishment as far as stopping a top row will be his match against Levan. Which, like, it was a while ago. It was a couple of years. Levan was already on the rise. Levan was already, like, the guy, but he wasn't as the one we know him now. But Krasimir still stops his top roll and beat him in the world match, right? So Krasimir has the tools, and perhaps he can accumulate the power to stop a top roll, right? He has the tools. So it just whether that's going to happen or not. And also I wanted to see how Vitaly gets beaten. If Vitaly gets, rolled into a hook, like, can that happen? Like, have that happen? There are some matches of like average humans doing it, right? There's Sergey Bogoslovov done that in overall. Sergey, I think, beat Silaev that day, and he hooked Vitaly into a hook. It was also, not a 1,000,000 pounds heavy Vitaly, but still, we know that his arm can go in weird directions, so we know, like, it can happen. It's just whether the question is the power, I guess.
So a couple of things on that. First thing is, I always thought Vitaly was like, because of that Igor's footage, I always thought Vitaly was like some random truck driver that just got into arm wrestling like 3 years ago. But in reality, Vitaly has been an arm wrestler since he was like a teenager, apparently.
Yeah, as I was saying, like, he's been arm wrestling since like, what, 95, 97? Yeah.
So in addition to that, recently, suddenly, out of nowhere, he gained like 50 pounds. So there's a significant reason to think he's going to be much more powerful than he's ever been before, right? Another note I'd like to add is that Krasimir is actually, I was wrong before, Krasimir is the most successful natural arm wrestler, as he said before in a couple of interviews. So it's really fascinating to me. Rarely you see somebody that's natural that has 21-inch arms or 20-inch arms like RVJ, but Krasi apparently is another one. So there's actually RVJ and Krasi. I was always saying it was just RVJ. The other thing I want to ask you is, how is Silaev doing? I haven't heard much about him. For those that don't know, Silaev is this interesting Russian arm wrestler. He's a super heavyweight. He's actually obese, but very powerful. It's really interesting to watch. No, he's clinically obese, but it's really interesting to watch him. He's very, very powerful, and he's Laletin's training partner. What happened to him?
It's so hard to get reviews from like Middle Eastern guys or like European guys because they're like super like straight, right?
Tell the audience what you told me on the phone the other day. I was like, listen, I'm like Slavic people. I'm very direct. What did you say?
Yeah, I forgot. Well, as my coach, like me and my coach, actually, like me and my coach now, good friends, right? He been coaching me. Like, our conversation was like, hey, you go fuck yourself, right? That was the first thing that we did. Like, so they're like, it's okay. We all have hot blood and whatever. Like, yeah, you know what? It's a good word.
No, that's not what he told me. He told me, you're not like a Slavic person. You're like direct, but a little angry, like a Middle Eastern.
I said, you have that. It's as long as you've been in America, you still have the Middle Eastern in you to where like you get like this divorce, you get super fast. Like, no, this is disgusting. This is disgusting. Middle Eastern people like to, whenever they don't like something, they really do make a point. Like, this is terrible. This is. I cannot you cannot take it inside, right? Like it's just,
wait. So I want to ask you about something else though, before I forget. Recently, Brzenk, I heard some interview of Brzenk where he was commenting on the Chaffee and Levan match. He was saying that he thinks Chaffee. I never heard that said this way before. I always heard Chaffee has the strongest arm in arm wrestling, but the way Brzenk said it is that Chaffee has the best side pressure. That's going like this, that turning side pressure. And he later, when he was characterizing Levan's weakness, he said, I don't know much about Levan, but I imagine that the best way to beat a guy that big, like he was relating him to that 700-pound guy he used to face, is by that side pressure, going like that. So he said, if anyone has a chance, it might be Dave Chaffee. Do you think so?
Yes, that's exactly like when I talked about the match. That's kind of exactly what I said. It's gonna come down in that case. If Dave have the same power as Levan, it's whether his style is actually matches Levan so perfectly to where he has a chance, right? If Dave is as strong as Levan, but he doesn't go, his style doesn't work, it's going to be easy to beat for Levan, right? But Dave has that style that we all know about, right? Like look at Tseplenkov. The year that there was that 1 year where we learned about Dave Chaffee when they met up at Zlati, right? Dave and Dennis. Couple months before that, Mazurenko made a video saying that Igor saying that it's era of Dennis. Nobody will beat Dennis for the next 5 to 10 years. It's going to be impossible. And a couple months later, we have Dave Chaffee obviously giving, Dennis the work. So with that being said, like if you look at it, like Dave is the only person that kind of can give Dennis a very nice orthodox, legit match. And I think it's because of the style, because now you see Dave and Andrey just smashes Dave. Like, just there's no match because the styles are so much different. Yet Dave's style is so annoying for Dennis, I feel, to where they are perfect match because Dennis had a hard time beating it. And I think same thing with Levan. Levan gonna, if Dave's style matches Levan, and if John Brzenk kind of can see it a lot clearer than me, I guess John is right. Because I'm agreeing with John. I just cannot really see if I'm correct and why will this style work as good. But if John can see it, then yeah, I think that style will make so much difference because where Dave is gonna go. Like I'm agreeing.
By the way, one other thing, what do you think of Genadi's amazing progress in terms of beard and strength at the same time? He's just transformed himself.
Beard is good. It's like it's whole as a human, right? Like it's
different.
Like he wasn't like an ugly person before the beard. He can rock it off both ways, I think. But it's just a whole another arm wrestler, like a different person.
Yeah, every curl. I think wasn't he injured for like a couple of years, and that's why we didn't see him perform very well. And then now he seems to have recovered and he's progressing fast. Or
that's what I've heard. Well, I've heard it as an excuse. That's why I like it when he lost to Dave. I think when he lost to Dave, the main thing everybody was focused that Genadi was injured. I couldn't remember what it was, shoulder or elbow, but yeah, there was some injury going on. And I guess the rumor and the word on the street is that Genadi is back. I'm just really, I just wasn't a fan of that. I feel like, they've beat him pretty good, but then, we're talking about this like, an injury. I'm like, bad timing for such statement. So yeah, I'm assuming if that's what it was, yeah, I think Genadi was injured and he's coming back.
He's lifting the same lifts as Levan. Like
Yeah, it's crazy strength. Yeah, it's crazy.
But you know, my favorite arm wrestlers that I ever watched personally was Pushkar, because he was like a lion on a stage. You know, my favorite time was when he gets mad at someone and doesn't let them get the strap and smashes them while staring into their eyes. Like he did this to that Turkish guy who he's not originally Turkish. No, he is it.
Ferit Osmanli.
Ferit Osmanli. If anyone wants to watch that match, search Ferit Osmanli, Ferit, and then Pushkar, Andrey Pushkar, and watch Andrey when Ferit is wearing blue get pissed off at Ferit and make him a woman in front of him. It's like unbelievable power and anger and ferociousness. But on the other hand, my second favorite person to watch was Genadi, because Genadi is like an acrobat and he's like fun. Like sometimes you see his legs on top of the table, he's moving in random directions. He's not moving, but he's screaming really hard. It's so fun to watch.
Yeah, he has good connection. He has good side prayer, so he can dig himself out of like super hard position. He's fun to watch.
And he reverses suddenly.
Yeah. And then, so coming back to your being Middle Eastern and just calling people obese, like it's normal. It is. It is. Let's call. So Dmitry is.
No, I didn't call him that. I said like that's the. If you watch the match, man, there's no way to describe it. He made him like you saw, like he got mad at him, he held him, slowly defeated him, and stared into his eyes and screamed at him at the same time.
Yeah, I
didn't shake his hand after either.
I was talking about Silaev. You call him Silaev obese.
Oh, sorry. No, that's just because we're.
Yeah, I get it. It's for a medical term. I get it. But
medical term, yeah.
He's currently in jail, right? For
Silaev?
Yeah, for alleged. So it's the thing. I posted. People got mad at me because I translated the free written article, and I translated, and people got mad. It was an article that's saying that Silaev he was a part of. Oh, I think it's a battery will be considered. So basically some dude owed some chick some money. This chick was like telling her friends like, hey, can you go like return my money for me, right? Can you return my money? So they set up for this guy to come meet him and like, asking for the money or rob him. And Silaev was one of those, seems like he was part of the group. They might be brought him in like, yo, dude, you look like big and scary. Maybe like some of his friends, hey, you look big and scary, like come and like join us and like, let's, do the right thing. So they ended up like robbing this poor guy for like $200 or whatever, right? And the guy went to the police and like, hey, like, I don't know. I don't think he has to say anything. He might have to say, hey, I think I was owing this woman some money and they come and rob me. Like, and I guess like as far as news article go, they say like Dmitry was holding the pistol or something. So the news article is crazy. So if they really want to like go hard on him, he gonna go like for a long time, regardless of his involvement, right? If the press not gonna go too hard and they rule him out as he will just kind of happen to be in the bad company, at the time being, they might just let him go, being, what is it called? Being on of the thing. Whatever. So I don't know, they might let him go. It depends, but he's in a weird spot. I don't know what's true, what's not true, because people got mad at me saying that most of it is not true, but he is officially not in top 8. Mazurenko made video saying that,
he was going to be in the top 8?
Oh yeah, he's in top 8. He was supposed to. I forgot. That's what I'm saying. Like Igor's promotion is a little funny, but he was supposed to pull somebody. Trubin? I don't know. Like he had a match. He had a match long enough, and now he's officially not at the thing anymore.
Well, I'm really sorry to hear that. Like, my prayers go out to Silaev. I hope he gets free Silaev, and doesn't sound like he did anything too bad. Hopefully, in Russia, you guys have sometimes a good system. If somebody has, somebody inside, maybe can,
it's convenient, and Silaev is a good man, so I'm hoping.
Prayers go out to him. So if anyone can help him, go help him if you hear this. If you know somebody which state was he captured in? Which part in Russia?
Probably where he's from, which is Krasimir.
Is he from Siberia?
Yeah, which is Krasimir. I think they're like from this. I don't know. Who knows?
Okay, so let's get into our discussion for today. We don't want to be too long-winded, so we can keep doing this every week or two and keep the audience on track. So a couple of things we wanted to do today. I wanted to talk about pain in arm wrestling. So maybe, Artem, you can introduce this to the audience because you are a much longer arm wrestler than me. How does pain go in normal arm wrestling training when you're a newbie? That toothache for the 6 months, how does it change over the years? Do experienced arm wrestlers feel pain all the time?
No, I think so. Like me and my coach had a theory in it, and I like that theory because you never really can understand where the pain's coming from, right? And the people, people think you get inflamed, muscle, whatever. I mean, it is eventually overtraining, but I don't think it was my coach, but someone explained to me to where I liked it, where basically, it's your pain receptors adapting to the pain, right? So basically, you practice for a good amount of time, your pain receptor can't handle it anymore, right? So all of a sudden you get pain. And I think these years, because of those pain receptors in your CNS and all that, you adjust into this pain, right? I think that's how it works. Or that's how I like to believe it works. But yeah, this pain is intolerable for a good amount of time. If you don't know what to do, right? That's what I was explaining it with Devon Larrett on his I think on his interview, that in Russia, when I start training, actually one of the things, or during the first practice sessions, my coach was asking me number one thing, like, how's your arms? Like, are you sore? Like, you feeling pain? I'm like, yeah, I have a little pain. That's it. You're stopping. No more practice. Like, you're going home, right? You're sent home, right? Oh yeah. So like,
that's not what I did.
Little bit of pain, you go home. If you feel in pain, you try, and first practices, you try, no, I got it. They're like, no, you ain't got it. You're gonna go home. So, but yeah, as you know, you've tried yourself. People experience it and, go through the volume of pain. And I think the pain goes away. Like for right now, but it depends on you, your personal, your diet, have to be with inflammation and all stuff. How often you practice yourself, what's your level at, right? Sometimes I go to practice and it takes me a time to recover. But once I'm in a groove, I'm working out, I practice twice a week and I can grind one of them or sometimes two of them. I feel like my elbow be a little inflamed, shoulders, but I will never get the pain, right? So I think it goes away. There's more you practice and the longer you're in the game. But yeah, that pain, that little toothache right in between the biceps and triceps and you break your radialis.
Yeah. What about in the shoulder? Do you ever get shoulder pain as an experienced arm wrestler when during training? Like if you get hit and lose and to try to resist and lose, do you ever get a shoulder pain?
No, like nowadays I get, but I think it's just my little bit of injury of me, like not paying much attention to my rotator cuff. But my left arm, for example, is good. Like, no, I think you go through periods. Depends on your style and where you at, what's your actual, like, how you built, how you came to arm wrestling. You go through a cycle of like having a little bit wrist pain, shoulder, elbow, maybe a little bit in between your shoulder blades. You'll get through this process and stuff. But I think for the most part, the toothache, that's what's going to get everybody. And I think all the rest of our little points kind of depends how lucky you are and how reckless you are on the table.
And how exactly. So before we get into the pain stuff, would you recommend that arm wrestlers that are just getting into training follow the kind of advice that your coach gives? Because to offer a comparison of what happened to me, when I first got into arm wrestling, I was quite strong at the time for upper body strength, pulling strength on machines and stuff like that. And I thought I was okay. I go to practice and they didn't tell me like, if you feel pain, you should stop. So I was going to practice once a week. And every time I would get the practice, I would go back home. At least the first 2 months, I would be like literally holding my arms, putting in pain. Feeling like a bitch, like sitting in pain. My girlfriend like staring at me like, what's wrong with you? Like my arms hurt. And then people can't even believe how much it hurts because there's no obvious scar or injury or something like that, but it hurts a lot. So I would sit for like 2 hours in pain, and then I never took ibuprofen. So I would be in pain, and then the next day it gets better. But then when I go to work out with weights, I can't lift the weights properly because I'm injured from this thing. So you can actually see yourself getting weaker over time as you're in this. So how would you advise they manage it? Should they go through that and like just try to feel the pain, feel the toothache, let it go? Or should they be like how your coach told you?
Well, see, like, I'm going to go with what I believe in myself from what my first actual coach that I've met in person told, like when I started arm wrestling, what they were telling me, and what I'm reading in the manual that about the manual, translate the thing. I'm reading what Ivan told to everybody who buys the manual, and it's all if it's in the same thing. So what he recommends, or I guess the general majority, you don't have to like believe it. It's just kind of how Russians seem to train, right? You always want to see, that's a little different. Your practice should be kind of a workout. You should be working out on the table, right? The whole process is you're doing five 5 or whatever sets on different practices, different techniques, right? Do a couple sets of top roll, a couple of sets of hook. There's almost no resistance, right? And the goal there was, if you feel that pain in your arm, like you just stop, you're going to go. Like where I think over here in America, we don't even really introduce our amateurs to the pain, right? We just kind of arm wrestle until they can. And they're like, you good? Yeah, I'm okay. And like,
no one wants to admit they're in pain, so we just walk away.
I never ask, but like, you have to be aware, like those people sometimes cannot, even they practice with you for 2-3 hours. They have they wanted to stop 3 hours ago.
That's me. I would keep going, but I wouldn't want to say it.
I guess my recommendation will be, if you're at the practice and you're a brand new guy, watch out for that pain. As soon as you start feeling that little irritation feeling, which for the brand new guy, assuming this pretty junk diet of eating types of shit that cause you inflammatory and stuff, it's going to come pretty fast. I think 30 minutes to an hour. Depends what kind of practice it is, right? I was even lucky. My practice were good, right? Nobody was trying to hit me. I was not in any real match for the whole time of my first practice, right? I'm just there. They just asking me to show what I can. The guys tries to stop me. It causes irritation. And they stop at some point, right? Here we're just banging. So it's not going to take too long for the brand new guy to feel that pain. So my recommendation, once you got to the point, because you're going to get there, your first practice, if you listen to what you said, you're going to have some pain, time for you to stop, go home, maybe do some hot and cold.
Yeah, now let's talk about that. Now let's talk about that.
We can do some of that. And then the important part is maybe relax a little bit. Make sure if you're working out with something light. You know what I'm saying? Because people tend to work out heavy, go to the next practice, it happens again. And you all of a sudden, you leave for the next few months of your life. It's just your pain in your arms not going away at all. And some people have it bad. I have one of my ex-roommates, the guy who lives down the street, can't practice for nothing. Practices for 3 hours, that's it. His arm's going to be gone for the next week or two.
Yeah, that's how I would. Now let's talk about some of the science behind it. So, without including citations here, but really quickly, there's an interesting class of drugs called senolytics. Senolytics kill what are called senescent cells. Senescent cells are, when our cells in our body divide throughout life, they keep dividing until they reach what's called the Hayflick limit. The Hayflick limit is a limit in cell division at which the cell either dies or becomes what's called a senescent cell. A senescent cell is sort of like a zombie cell that doesn't function properly, but attracts or releases pro-inflammatory signaling in the body. Now, the reason why I'm telling you this is this. This is a really shocking study. A study in the last 5 years on humans showed that injecting a senolytic, a drug that kills the senescent cells, into the knee of osteoarthritic older women totally abolished their pain, although they had no cartilage in the knee. So even though you had no cartilage, it's bone on bone. If you kill the senescent cells which produce the pro-inflammatory, the inflammation, if you kill the reason for the inflammation, they don't have any pain. It's not the cartilage, it's the inflammation. So inflammation in general produces a sensation that they call hyperalgesia, which is the sensation of pain excessively. That's why people use ibuprofen to limit their pain. It doesn't work on the pain receptors, the opiate receptors. It works by the COX thing. There's something called COX, which lowers inflammation.
Gotcha. Isn't like that ibuprofen basically just covers the feeling?
It covers the feeling how?
Well, I'm asking, this will have ibuprofen gel where it just covers the feeling of pain.
I got what you mean. Yeah. No, ibuprofen is pretty interesting. It does actually limit the body's ability to form inflammatory biological mechanisms. So with this COX thing. And that part may not be actually unhealthy. For example, people who take ibuprofen in the long term are less likely to get Alzheimer's disease, because they have less inflammation in their brain. The problem is, and this is why we made this video, Artem and I, we want to tell you guys just one thing. A lot of arm wrestlers use ibuprofen every week at practice. Ibuprofen is worse for your kidneys than steroids. It's very bad for your kidneys. And for people that don't know this, if you take it a very long time, for people that don't know this, men die of kidney failure before women. If a man lives long enough, his kidneys will fail. Kidneys fail more when you're more muscular. when you eat more protein, basically when you're an arm wrestler, you're already hurting your kidneys a bit. So ibuprofen is not your best friend. On the other hand, there's an interesting thing. I thought I was going to be the person to introduce this to arm wrestlers. I've been practicing with it for a few months, but John Brzenk did it last week instead. So John Brzenk was on an interview and he mentioned that he's been taking something called Naltrexone. Naltrexone is an opioid receptor antagonist. It blocks the opioid receptors. Now, why would that be good for inflammation or pain? Well, if you're taking an opioid, which I believe some arm wrestlers do, but they don't talk about it much, and for those that do take it, you can't use naltrexone because it's going to hurt you. But if you're not taking opioids, naltrexone is, I think almost every arm wrestler should probably be on it. It's very safe. If naltrexone, what it does is block the opiate receptors. When it does so, the opiate receptors upregulate. When that happens, our endorphins, you guys have probably heard when you go to the gym, you exercise, you get endorphins. What are endorphins? They bind to opiate receptors and activate them so you feel less pain. What happens when you block the receptors? They upregulate, so there's more receptors, so your endorphins can hit them more. Now, that doesn't work if you totally block them with 50 milligrams of naltrexone daily. But if you use between 4.5 milligrams and 10 milligrams daily, why I say 4.5 and 10? If you look at the academic studies, they're all 4.5. But from personal experience, I found that sometimes I have to raise the dose and then bring it back down. So sometimes I'll be 4.5 for a week, and then one day I'll do 10, go back down to 4.5. Or it's actually 5. I can't count out 4.5 with. You have to buy like a diamond scale and cut out the naltrexone tablets unless you have the actual 4.5 ones. If you want naltrexone, by the just FYI, you can get 4.5 low-dose naltrexone therapy from your doctor, or you could probably online, All Day Chemist or clearskypharmacy.biz, you'll get a 50 milligram tablet like me that you can then cut and use. Now, what it does though, there's a lot of studies on low-dose naltrexone therapy, what they show, and why John Brzenk is probably taking it. Number one, it actually improves immune function. As a response to bacteria or viruses, it makes your immune system better. But it also lowers inflammation at the same time, significantly, and lowers it in the brain also. So it really affects inflammation, particularly in the brain, which then affects your pain also. And separately, it upregulates the endorphin receptors, so you feel less pain naturally after your workout. So I think this is a beautiful thing arm wrestlers should be taking advantage of, maybe instead of the ibuprofen, if they're not opiate users. Have you heard this elsewhere, Artem, or just from Brzenk recently?
No, it's probably the brand new thing. I probably heard it just from you and John, but I didn't even listen to John's thing. So it's awesome that you did it all for me from both perspectives. So that's awesome. Yeah, I think it's cool knowledge. Also, I don't really know where you want to go there, but I have a question because there is a good theory about ibuprofen from Engin Terzi. I would like to hear your opinion on it. If that's
yeah, sounds interesting.
Okay, so that's kind of like the day I kind of start. That's the day I raised my awareness of Engin Terzi, of like his sanity. So maybe I'm wrong because I'm always kind of like I was like
question his sanity, or you agreed with him. What did you say?
I question his sanity. Like I was like, okay. So since that day, I'm real icky about the guy. But if you tell me that I'm wrong, I'll write him a letter apologizing for all the shit that I've said. So his theory, I think you can find it so I'm not making it up. You can find it as an article on armpower.net. I think he had a ibuprofen loading strategy where I forgot the timeline, but basically the timeline is before the tournament. I forgot if it's a week or 2 weeks, a couple days, but you're loading up his ibuprofen a certain time before the tournament, and you load it up, at the day of the tournament, you get your higher dose, and I assume you stop out. But it's a loading program of ibuprofen to where basically it's like a creatine. I think you take a little bit, I don't know, let's say a week before, you start taking it every day, little by little, upcoming for the tournament, and then I guess, I don't know if you PCT of ibuprofen. But that's the thing. It was a loading ibuprofen thing. And I thought, you will know how all this stuff works anyway. I came from the idea that ibuprofen generally can hurt you in many ways, stops your protein synthesis. I'm going from basic factors that you can Google. It's generally bad for your stomach. And I'm like, I don't think it can be, and it's not like a creatine. I don't think it just taking that every day just for shit and giggles or loading. I think it will hurt you more than it will prevent you from possible inflammation.
Oh, wait, first of all, look, guys, okay, let me what does Derek always say about this?
Am I right to question that, or he's legit? Like,
let's dissect this. First of all, I don't know about the idea of loading ibuprofen. I mean, no doctor has ever done that before. When they do that to patients, they give them a standard dose across days. They may keep it for several days, but they don't like do it so you load up for one day. That's not in the medical profession. But that's not a reason to say it doesn't work. I've never tried it. But let me suggest something that may be equally harmful for your body or less. Ibuprofen is so kidney toxic. I would rather load up on Anadrol for the competition, bro. Like, why don't you load up on something that makes you stronger and also hurts your kidney less than ibuprofen, for God's sake? Second of all, if you really want to suddenly kill the inflammation after the tournament, the best thing you could do is go and get an IV, injectable, glutathione and NAC, IV. If you do it right after the tournament, you will feel completely better in 1 hour and you don't have to kill your kidney. That thing doesn't hurt you very much. So there's better ways to do this. Anadrol and then glutathione and NAC would be better. I think it would be a better choice. Look, guys, I mean, I'm just being honest with you. In my life, I've rarely used painkillers, very rarely, including opiates. But when I had, for example, some serious injuries, I would rather use opiate than ibuprofen. And I had Crohn's disease. I suffered with 8 months of insane pain, constantly. Insane. And I never took an ibuprofen, not once. I took opiates like once a week or something when I would get sick. I'm not suggesting this for others. Opiates are very addictive, very dangerous for your mind, but not as much for your kidney. That's the difference. One opiate pill, if it's low dose, is less toxic to your kidney than the ibuprofen, like 5 milligrams of oxycodone. So personally, I would always try not to take anything. And then when it was so severe, I would one day just take a small amount, and I had no tolerance, so 2.5 milligram or 5 milligram. But that's how scared I am of ibuprofen. And in bodybuilding and powerlifting, we know about that. But in arm wrestling, for some reason, I never heard anyone say like the ibuprofen, how dangerous it is,
Yeah, no, like, I mean, I've seen people take it to practice. And actually, while you were talking, you tried to find, I just put quick ibuprofen enganterizine in Google. And I give was an article. It's not the same one, or maybe that's what I made out of it. But he's quoting that his preparation for the tournament, that I also plan to use ibuprofen last 2-3 days before the competition to minimize the inflammation. I will also use Cataflam tablet 1 hour before the competition to not feel the possible pain during the competition.
You would do better with using an opiate before the competition if you want to feel less pain. And I know, I'm sure top 5 arm wrestlers in the US one of them at least, I'm sure, is using opiates before the competitions. You can see how they react when their arm gets really hurt. Sometimes you don't see any expression change. And so the guy either doesn't feel that arm, which could be possible also. Some people feel their arms less as they degrade. But I have a strong feeling some of them I use sometimes an opiate prior to the competition. Have you ever heard of that, Artem?
No.
No one's ever talked about that, right?
Not except from you. No.
I'm not sure. I'm just speculating. I've never heard of anyone say that.
I actually, like, every time we talk about like American arm wrestlers, I never really heard of any like type of like deep chemical or food or any nutritional. You meet up with a bunch of Russians, they're always like, you should not eat this before this.
Yeah.
It's always the time. The food is time. Anything fluids is time. Salts, minerals.
Yeah, they're machines. Denis Shaplenkov was like that, like a machine.
Small little, illegal pharmacology thing that you can get. Small things like it's a huge amount of different things they believe in. And, some of them I don't really know. Like, it just, in America, it's not really a conversation. I'm saying? I think before the tournament, some people might talk about the gear, but like somewhere like in secluded location. But for the most time, we're like, yeah, man, I feel strong. Yeah.
Hey, let's mention something else. Honestly, that the one thing that helped me a lot was what you mentioned earlier, Artem, hot and cold baths. But what I tried to do, so I used to be into grip sport like RVJ, and in grip sport, in around 2004, there was a guy on the grip board who he was in a car accident and he really damaged his hand. When he'd finished the car accident, did the hand surgery, the hand doctor told him to put his hand in hot, take a small trash can and put hot water and the other one cold water or bucket, and you put your hand in the hot water for like a minute and then the cold water, and you go back and forth 3 times and you end on the cold one, and do that twice a day. He did it. It rapidly improved his healing time. So the people on the grip board started doing it. I did it. It changed my life. I was suffering with so much tendonitis. I did it for like 2 weeks. Everything changed. I was able to progress much faster. In arm wrestling, what I tried to do was I tried to take like a longer bucket that I can put up to like here from my right arm. And I would just do it with one arm after the practice. The difference in healing time, unbelievable. when you just totally submerge it. It's not a whole body bath, because if it's a body bath, the blood will go everywhere. But if you focus it on one area, it gets the blood in and out, in and out, in and out. And what that does is with the blood, it brings the growth factors, the healing factors. Now, this is particularly true, I think, if you're using something like growth hormone, TB500, BPC157, these healing factors. They're in your blood. If you force them into one area with twice a day hot and cold baths, if you're an arm wrestler, I predict you can dramatically improve the healing time, especially if you're like directly injecting in that area.
That's what I was about to ask. What if you take something, I don't know, BP157 or whatever, if you're injecting it in the actual area? I
have a client doing that right now as an arm wrestler, injecting the BPC in the arm and putting it twice a day in the hot and cold water and the TB500 in the arm. Yeah, it's because what's going to happen is the TB500 and BPC157 will dramatically increase vascularity in that arm locally. And if you put the blood there while that's happening, it's going to force all those growth factors in that area. Particularly if you're using just one arm, I think this is an interesting practice.
I got you. I was just not sure if because you were talking about some, your body, I forgot what you said, androgenic receptors like in your shoulders and shit. I was wondering if that's the way it works. So just basically the way you inject it where it might be a better area.
No, so that's an interesting comment you make. Yeah, so the androgens, they're located, a lot of the receptors unusually are located like from here upwards. And they think that it's evolutionarily, supposedly because back in the, thousands of years ago, women could see from a distance if this man, or men could see if this man coming was a big androgenic man, so they could get scared and run away. If you saw Trubin with his shoulders coming, you'd run away or something like that. So they say that's why it's supposed to be, we have a lot of androgen receptors there. But that's also, by the way, the easiest way to tell if somebody's natural or not. The non-natural guy will tend to have more muscle here than on his arms, for example. He has the same arms as the natural guy, but more here. Now, that's for androgen receptors. Growth hormone, it sort of seems to be, well, maybe it's distributed in some way, but it's not particularly noticeable. The difference is growth hormone has local effects. So does TB500 and so does BPC157. Especially the latter two have really local effects. The androgens don't. Supposedly they do if they don't have an ester, but we've never seen any evidence of it. But I've definitely seen evidence of BPC157 and TB500 injected locally in an area changing. Yeah, definitely. But brother, let's keep this short for now. We have to offer one apology. We wanted to do the show earlier, and we were trying to get Herman and RVJ on, but somehow that got distorted, and RVJ never got busy or whatever, and then we never brought Herman on. So if Herman sees this, we'll get you on next time, buddy. We didn't mean to. We just scheduled this real quick.
Yeah. Sorry about that, guys.
Okay, Artem. So I'll let you be now, and we'll do another one in a week or two. Maybe I'll be a father by then. This is gonna be interesting.
Hold on. So let's just sum it up before we actually finish the whole thing. So give me a quick example for the arm wrestler. What they should do? How dangerous for them to take ibuprofen? Let's just in plain words.
It's not that it's so severely dangerous if it's done acutely, but the issue is if you're a chronic ibuprofen user. Do you use ibuprofen every week, twice a week? Then maybe start thinking about it. Do you use it every week, once a week? Maybe it's not that bad. But if you are using it and not using naltrexone, you're making a mistake. Start with naltrexone, then lower your systemic inflammation, something that you sure works and is not unhealthy at all. Then maybe if you need once a week or once every month or something, you could use ibuprofen. But do not think that ibuprofen is innocuous, that it's not dangerous. Don't pop it daily and think you'll be fine. There are people who lost their kidneys doing that. Lost their kidneys. They're just doing that. So you don't want to do that, especially if you're a PED user. If you're a PED user, you probably don't ever want to just touch that at all.
Okay, so they have to go for what is the Naltrexone?
Naltrexone, and you can find it online, as I said.
Okay, so that's gonna be.
There's many other things we could talk about regarding pain and inflammation, but I thought we'll keep it short so the listeners can remember like some couple of tips. Like even for example, the food you eat. If the food you eat is inflammatory to your body, you're gonna feel more pain that day, like Artem said.
That's another thing too.
Like Artem said, yeah, that's true.
I'm a big believer in that too. Like if inflammation comes from many ways. One of those, the diet is one of the main contributors to our inflammation, right? I don't know if you know about it, but if you know what, you maybe know more about it than anybody ever talked about it. We should have some people give me a suggestion. Igor Mazurenko at one time created the supplement. Oh my God, you will love the subject. You will love this shit. So Igor Mazurenko made the supplement at one point, and the supplement was made accordingly. So this is all just from his words, right? So the idea was that it was made for only natural athletes, and if you're on any type of steroids, it will actually make your situation worse. I don't know what, but the supplement was, if you take a few of those pills that he created, your endurance will go just in another level. Like, you will not get pumped during the tournament, and nothing will happen to you. I say absolutely fresh, as long as you're natural. And if you're not, you will experience the opposite. And I'm like,
that's not possible. There's nothing like that.
But
there are supplements you can take that will improve your ability to work out as a natural. For example, trimethylglycine, shown to improve. Actually, Derek from More Plates, More Dates, check out his pre-workout. Highly recommend it. Use code Leo, which is my code. No, Derek is a good guy. Great supplements. His pre-workout supplements are scientifically designed. You'll see 4 grams of trimethylglycine in there. There's a reason for that. That is shown in clinical studies to improve exercise performance and recovery. There are things like that, but they would never worsen the recovery for that androgenic guy. That's not possible.
Yeah, so
that would mean, by the way, Artem, if that's true, that would mean that supplement works better in women than men. Right? How would that happen?
It was never really went for sale. I've got to take a sample of it. I didn't really feel anything at the time, but when I met Igor, he gave me like a couple of those pills, and like he been promoting it back in the days, but I don't think it never really hit the shelves. But it was like a test thing. Who knows? But I started making the research, and I'm like, I just could not believe that how it can work, right? Why will there be a supplement that kind of works different if somebody's on steroids or not? Like, what does it have to do with something? Is the water intake, whatever? I started looking at like basically improving person endurance and getting pumped during the match, right? And that kind of came back to diet. It came back to like just kind of his inflammation. Like, if your food is it was a weird chart. I did not find too much information about it, but I did find an article. There's a food chart, how acidic your food is and acid level in your body. So technically, I think if you eat junk food, you'll have be actually inflamed, and you might get even more pumped based on your diet and acidicity of your body. So
okay. So let's. I didn't know you wanted to discuss in this much detail, but since you do, I'm going to spend just 5 minutes explaining to the audience what inflammation is and how it happens and why you're right in what you're saying, but maybe not so much the acidic part, but the rest is true. So inflammation is this: your body senses oxidative stress or not oxidative. You know what an antioxidant is, right? Like vitamin C. Vitamin C is an antioxidant, means it can neutralize what's called free radicals, free electrons that are moving in the body, causing damage to cells. Those free radicals increase when you, for example, exercise. So when you go to the gym, you cause inflammation because you're causing damage across your body, small damage. For example, every time you do a 100-pound bicep curl, okay, when you do the 100-pound bicep curl, you cause in your elbow joint little bits of cartilage to break off. And your immune system senses those little bits of cartilage, considers them what's called an antigen, and reacts by releasing pro-inflammatory cytokines, which are the soldiers of the immune system, to go neutralize that damage. That's actually how arthritis happens. It's usually not the actual mechanical stress, but rather the immune system sometimes gets confused, starts thinking this is a foreign body, and starts attacking it. Now, the important thing is this. Generally, you don't want to have what's called chronic low-level inflammation. Some people live with that. People with autoimmune conditions, like if you have psoriasis, you have eczema, you have Crohn's disease, colitis, you may have low-level inflammation. How can you check that? Do a blood test, check for C-reactive protein. If above 0.3 in the American scale, you have a little bit of chronic inflammation. If you want to get into detail, you can go to Quest Diagnostics, order the inflammatory cytokine panel, and you can actually see every one of those soldiers of the immune system, how high they are. So number one, I'll give you a list if the people are interested. IL-1 beta, that's interleukin 1 beta, is the one very important one for inflammation. IL-6, IL-8 is specifically raised when you have neuroinflammation. Tumor necrosis factor alpha is the final one that you really want to check there. So you can get exact readings and check over time how my body's reacting. Now, for example, there are drugs that can inhibit inflammation, like through the COX system, which is like ibuprofen. There are drugs that can also inhibit inflammation by directly inhibiting one of the cytokines, like there's tumor necrosis factor alpha blockers. The problem is when you block tumor necrosis factor, that thing is actually looking to kill cancers. So if you block it, you're more likely to get cancers also. So it's a tricky situation. The best way to limit inflammation is by doing it really through your diet and through supplements that are healthy. So for example, for me, I try to limit inflammation because I have Crohn's disease. So in the morning, I take 1 gram of NAC, 1 gram of TUDCA, 1 gram of vitamin C, 400 to 600 milligrams of R-alpha lipoic acid. I take 300 or so of tributyrin, and I also take 1 to 3 grams of the most powerful anti-inflammatory supplement ever, which is EPA from fish oil. If you take 10 grams of EPA from fish oil, which you can get affordably from Walmart Spring Valley brand, you'll see your inflammation in your blood test lower within a week. It's very significant, very powerful, but only when you use 10 or more grams. If you use 5 grams or 3 grams of EPA, it won't make a big difference. But I do this 3 times a day. And why I chose those vitamins and free radical scavengers, because they can be taken on an empty stomach. They're water soluble. So I take them 3 times a day, controlling my inflammation. And then with food later in the day, I take the fat soluble vitamins and free radical scavengers that are healthy, like coenzyme Q10 and things like that. But you can build that into your day. Then you can have a diet that's less inflammatory. So sometimes some of us react to some foods. Our body, our digestive tract and immune system thinks of the food as a foreign body. So it attacks it. So you have to not pick those foods. And you have to not pick certain foods like saturated fats, for example. Some of them are neurotoxic, so they'll cause inflammation. So if you're sitting eating butter all day, you might get inflammation. Other people will get the inflammation from polyunsaturated fats. But this was a bit too much detail, but what I wanted to show is that and what you were talking about the gym. So if you take ibuprofen right after you work out, you'll limit some of the inflammation from the workout. And that inflammation is important for recovery. So if you limit it too much, you'll screw that up. But what you want is no inflammation in the morning, then the workout you want inflammation, and you want to recover from that, then kill the inflammation the next day. So you get that signal to recover. Yeah,
I got you. And isn't like the ibuprofen can stop your recovery too?
Yes, absolutely. And the naltrexone cannot.
I got you. And the EPA from fish oil, isn't like, I think that was the thing, how you can determine if it's good fish oil or not. I think the cheap fish oil will only state that there's fish oil in it and that's it. Good fish oil actually tells you the amount of, I believe it's EPA in it and something else. Or
there are 2 ways to find good fish oil. There are 2 issues that you want to check out. Generally, one is whether the fish oil has been oxidized. So as the fish oil remains, so if it's open to light or in a high temperature, it gets oxidized. I'm going to make a video soon, actually, I just finished the notes for it, showing that oxidized fish oil can actually be dangerous in some studies. So you want fish oil that's not oxidized. What are the fish oils that are not oxidized? Usually they're not flavored. And usually they're liquids with a dark bottle, but sometimes you can find not oxidized ones from cheap ones like Spring Valley. The one I use is Nordic Naturals, the big bottle, but it's quite expensive. I used to use Spring Valley. Sometimes, it just depends if I feel like spending $60 on the freaking bottle. But no, all of them will say how much EPA and DHA you have. The second thing you want to look at is whether it's in triglyceride form or ethyl ester form. So what is ethyl ester form? They take the fish oil. All the companies have to remove the mercury. So to do that, they have to do a process in which they make the fish oil out of triglyceride form into ethyl ester form. Some companies then turn it back into triglyceride form. Some of them, by the way, say they do, like Carlson, but they don't do it for all of it. For part of it, they turn it back, but they're cheap. They don't do it for all of it. Some do it for all of it, like Nordic Naturals. If it's in triglyceride form, it's much more absorbable. So you could use ethyl ester form and use a higher dose. It would do the same thing. But you just don't want oxidized fish oil. And again, there is a concern over DHA. If you have too much DHA, your triglycerides in your blood may raise. But EPA will not harm you no matter what. So if you just use EPA like Omega Via, you can find Omega Via on Amazon. They just have only EPA. You can find only EPA from elsewhere also. I have actually, go to my website, my blog section. I have a very long section on fish oil. I also have a 45-minute video on fish oil on my channel that is the most comprehensive video on the subject ever made, I think. So you can get an introduction on my website. You'll see links. I used a third-party company to review fish oil products, and I listed them with links and reviewed them and explained which one, why I chose one or the other.
Nice. It's good for arm wrestlers because a lot of arm wrestlers are into fish oil and stuff. And like, I don't use so much as you realize, but yeah, your subject for super great for that because people
to use 4 grams a month from the Walmart brand Spring Valley only costs $15 a month.
Oh. Yeah.
So you could so $30 a month, you get 8 grams a day. That'll change the way you feel. It'll change the way you feel. You'll think clearer. You'll notice your inflammation is less. You'll clot less, which is a serious concern with the coronavirus. People get these blood clots all the time, so it's a helpful thing. But brother, let's let it be now so we don't overwhelm them, and we continue next week. Hopefully, maybe I'm a father next week. Hopefully, we'll see how it goes. I'll keep you updated. All right, brother. Say hi to your girlfriend. I'll talk to you soon, huh?
All right. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.